Hi everyone. Today I'm doing my 30 days 30 inks for April 2024 final video. This will be covering week 4 as well as a handful of days from week 5. Obviously, I'm not going to do two separate videos just to cover two different days of inks, and obviously I was keeping track of them in this little book. Sorry, this camera is totally backwards from what I'm looking at. I still haven't gotten used to it in the last few years, and it continues on the second page. I was smart this time because I was running out of pens I had, and I didn't want to keep inking all these pens, even if I was only doing a little bit of ink just to cover a basic writing sample for a day and maybe a little afterwards. So I basically just switched to doing my dip pen full time for the last week or so. Now, some of the inks performed better in the dip pen than others. Like for example, some of them it was hard to write even 1, 2, 3, whatever words with an ink, while others it just kept writing and writing for a couple of lines. So maybe I'm just not using the dip pen properly, or there are just some inks or certain properties of inks that perform better in them. So let's just go over the journal entries and do more in depth with the inks. So for day 22, I tried another brown ink, only the second brown ink I have used ever. I did the Waterman Havana ink and the fountain pen Revolution Jaipur version 2, the orange cracked ice acrylic, and this has a fine tip. I'm sorry it's not showing it's quite as orange as it really is because of the lighting, but it definitely looks a lot more orangey than yellowish than it does here. And let's see, this is the Waterman ink. I really enjoyed it. Right here, yeah, here it is. This video is totally unscripted, and this was really beautiful. I'm looking forward to trying even more brown inks in future. And this is just the journal entry which I wrote with it, just talking about those Hamas supporting loons at Columbia are still at it again, and all these other campuses they're cosplaying as 60s protesters 2.0, except hippies were not violent thugs like that. I hate these people so much, and they're oh, we're not anti-Semitic, we're just innocently supporting a terrorist group and recycling Soviet Union anti-Semitic rhetoric that they rephrased to make it seem like it wasn't anti-Semitic. I just hate these people so frickin' much. For day 23, I used Private Reserve Infinity ink, Infinity Black. It's called Infinity because apparently it stays on, the ink stays fresher. It doesn't dry up in the pen if you keep the cap off for long periods of time. And I used this in the LeBoeuf George Washington fountain pen, which has a fine nib. I got this because President Washington is one of my distant cousins. I was so thrilled to discover that doing genealogical research maybe 4 or 5 or so years ago. And also he polled as my ideal president when I took an in-depth survey about that topic when I was 17, so I was totally thrilled. Again, this is not showing up as its true color on the actual film. It looks more orangey-ish. I'm sorry, I just need so much better filming, but trust me, it looks a lot more orangey than this light yellowish in person. And I had not used the Infinity Black since the 8th of December of 2023, and I'm here for this year's entry for April 23rd when I'm using that ink. I'm just talking about a booktuber I finally had to unsubscribe to. I haven't really been watching his videos at all for a long time, and he just basically, not that I would have been surprised about this given his political leanings, which he makes very obvious in no uncertain terms, but he was doing a Holocaust inversion, the classic, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just being a good little wokester, and I'm going along with whatever the checklist says, and I'm not even realizing I really am acting like an anti-Semite, so thanks for outing yourself even further, dude. Not that I had any doubts. I mean, I kind of knew what this dude was all about originally. I should have paid attention more to my gut feelings because he was, bashing the living person I admire most. So I thought, okay, this person, he's going to really push all my buttons. I don't agree with his politics. I don't think it's appropriate for him to bring politics into a channel that's supposed to be about, just doing book reviews and stuff like that. But when I saw he subscribed to me, I thought, okay, I'll be nice and repay the favor. And it's just, the kinds of videos he makes just make me really, uncomfortable. I do not agree with those political views at all. And when he finally outed himself as doing Holocaust inversion and the woke new iteration of anti-Semitism, look, dude, I'm done. I'm not watching your videos anymore. Just sorry, not sorry. And for day 24, I used for the first time a J. Herbin ink. Hopefully I'm not mangling that French pronunciation too much. The Cacao du Brésil. It's a kind of grayish brown ink, I think. Like from the description, I thought it was obviously going to be a brownish ink, but it turned out like much more gray. I don't know if that was, you know, the nature of the dip pen, that it didn't really like, maybe, well, maybe it looks a little bit like different if it's in like a non-dip pen or a just, you know, a thicker nib, something like that. But it did, I mean, it wasn't a bad color. I kind of liked it. I just wish maybe I could have appreciated it a little bit more in, you know, a different kind of pen. And just here's the April 24th entry. Let's see what I am talking about. Like, it looks like I'm talking about, yeah, my, no, not my writing process. Oh, yeah, I was like watching the, oh, yeah, well, I finished up watching the OJ25, which I mentioned in the previous video. And it's like when I was like watching the final episode with like, obviously the footage of the verdict and people reacting to it, and as I've said in previous videos, I'm so embarrassed. I thought he was like 100% innocent and being framed until shortly before the verdict came in. I mean, no, that's like totally, like most, like who thinks like that? I'm probably one of the few people who thought, oh, totally innocent, but then like started to like have second thoughts the very day of the verdict, and then by the time it came in, I didn't know what to believe anymore, and then now of course I know he was, you know, 100% guilty. And so when I was, you know, like watching this vintage footage from like October 3rd, 1993, I started having this intense like body reaction. Like there was a certain part of my brain that was like reliving it, thinking I was like back there and, you know, feeling like physically afraid and like stress and trauma because, you know, those things live in the body. It was very similar to when I was watching the Nat Geo 6-parter One Day in America about 9/11 last July. I was having really, really intense physical reactions then that like completely surprised me. Like I had no idea I had that much, you know, like, you know, repressed like secondhand trauma about those events. But, you know, the brain is like an amazing thing. We'll probably never really understand how it works. And for day 25, I used J. Herbin blue Pervenche, and again in the dip pen. This is a really, really lovely blue. It's kind of like a sky blue. Obviously, it registers like much darker or more, like you can more appreciate the color properties and such if it's in a medium or a broad nib. I'm not quite sure the size of this nib that was in the dip pen. There, it came with like 3 other nibs, but I'm not sure how to take out the existing nib and put the others in. Obviously, I'll need to do some more research about that one. And for this is the, what am I talking about? For the day 25, I'm talking about, oh yeah, I was changing my conch jewelry in my right ear, and it got totally swollen up. It turned out to be much harder to change the jewelry in my right conch than in my left conch. This is only the 3rd time I've had, you know, like had a change of jewelry in it, like the stuff I got pierced with, and then I had to change like maybe a year and a half ago, and then I just changed it again, because you do not need to constantly be changing your jewelry in professional piercings, particularly in like cartilage piercings. And so, because obviously this is like pretty much one of the thickest, hardest parts of cartilage in the ear, yeah, that totally, you know, swelled up for a couple of days, but now it's, you know, like totally back to normal and just is like lovely blue. I'm sorry, it's not really showing up that well in the camera again, but I think there it goes a little bit better. But it's much lighter than it's showing up. I'm not really sure. The lighting just is so, you know, jacked here. Maybe that's a little bit better. I'm sorry if this makes me look totally unprofessional, but I'm really trying, you know, hard to up my game. But I'm really trying to say it looks much, you know, lighter than it's actually showing up in the camera. So I'm really not sure why it's doing that. Maybe, oh yeah, when I took the light off, I think that helped it a little bit, but again, it's still a little bit lighter than it really is showing up in the video. For day 26, I used a Mont Blanc Oyster Gray again in the dip pen. This is obviously from my father's collection. I took the last few inks I was using, because I personally do not have 30 inks of my own. Maybe I do, counting the 5 Sailor free sample inks, which I still have not yet dipped into, but definitely I was starting to run out of inks which I own. Which I personally own myself, and for like this was one of the inks that really was not working so well with the dip pen. It, you know, barely held the ink for a couple of letters. I had to keep dipping it, and I finally switched to a different ink after I just had enough for the sample. I'm just talking about like, oh, this pro-Hamas insanity is just taking over so many other campuses. Like, how did Gen Z and many of millennials lose the way so badly? It's just like, what is going on upstairs? Like, who indoctrinated these people? Just so many questions, so many like disturbing things coming to light about these, like, you know, clowns. For day 27, I used Private Reserve Sherwood Green, which I have used prior. I really enjoy this green color. Green is my 3rd favorite color. I most prefer like dark, bright, jewel-like shades of green, for example, like malachite, emerald, dark jade, things like that. This is a really, really, you know, pretty green. And again, I was using the dip pen, and this is for the April 27th, just to have a little bit of the color entry. It doesn't look green at all in the camera. I don't know what's going on there. I'm just talking about my writing process and things like that. I really am sorry the color isn't really, like, you know, showing up well on the camera. I just I definitely need much better lighting, but trust me, it looks much more green. It looks, it's showing up kind of like blackish on the camera. I really, really don't understand what's, you know, going on there, but definitely it looks like much prettier green than it actually, you know, does in person. So you can just like admire it, I guess, or just see the pretty green. I guess it looks a little bit different on that page. Maybe it's the time of day I'm filming it. Maybe it would look better if I were like filming at 8 in the morning or something like that. But just, you know, leave comments down below if you guys have, you know, any suggestions. I'm very sorry about that, you guys. I accidentally pressed a button and stopped the video when I was trying to bring the book in closer to show a better view of the ink. And again, I accidentally forgot to press record when I thought I was trying it all over again. So, you know, my bad. Like, I just like don't understand why it's not like showing up as actual green. Like, no matter like where I position the light or like try to move the curtains open. I definitely leave your comments down below, like what you guys use for your own lighting. And I also do know I need to like work on like a tripod, like camera filming system, so I can film from above instead of having to tilt the camera screen down. So maybe it like works a little bit better when I, you know, hold the book up. I guess the green like is showing a little bit, you know, better there. I'm sorry if this makes me look like unprofessional and amateurish, but I am trying my best to like up my, you know, tech game and doing the best with, you know, the existing filming and lighting technology which I already have. You know, I'm like a dinosaur over 40, so it's not like, you know, I have like knowledge about all of this stuff, like, you know, from the jump. But it's definitely a very pretty green, and I'm really sorry you guys can't see it the way I'm like, you know, seeing it in person. Like, maybe that looks a little bit better. For day 28, I used Private Reserve Midnight Blues. I'm not sure I've used this before. I know I've used some of their other blue inks, like American Blues, and I don't know if I used blue suede. Maybe I did in the past, and since it's a really lovely blue, I love all kinds of blue shades, and I'm also like finding myself, obviously I like really bright, like obvious blues most, but I'm starting to, you know, get into like blues that are more, you know, like a more subtle shade of blue, so-called, you know, professional, with like, you know, like a dark gray or a black undertone, like, you know, looking like this kind of, not, you know, like bright in your face blue like that. And for like the entry which I wrote for the 28th of April, let's say, I'm sorry about that road and noise or like yard work from out in the street, you know, so I'm just talking about my work in progress and like just my thought process about like some things which I may or may not change as I finally, you know, chug into the finish line. For day 29, I used Pelikan Blue Black again in the dip pen. I used like pretty much the final week. Everything was in a dip pen. I've never used Pelikan ink before, and I don't have a Pelikan pen myself either. Obviously, this is German ink, German like art supplies, and pretty much everything in general is very high quality. I highly recommend the like Faber-Castell Polychromos colored pencils and the other art supplies from Faber-Castell. If you guys are also into that, I'm so long overdue to start making a couple of art tube videos talking about or just showing off my art supply collection. Let's just see, this is what, day 29. So what was I, you know, talking about in that entry, like number, see the growing, what am I talking, oh yeah, again, talking about these like brats on the campuses thinking they're, oh, we're awesome, we're wonderful, we're anti-war, we're woke, we're on the right side of history, we're such good little wokesters, and they're just like revealing themselves, they're complete anti-Semites and pro-terrorism. Just like, how are these people going to look back on themselves in 20 years, like, unlike the rest of us who came of age before social media and outgrew the most embarrassing things about ourselves when we were young. They're having this documented for the whole world, like preserved for posterity for all time and eternity. So just like, seriously, I mean, I can't even say I have secondhand embarrassment for these people, because they're bringing it all on themselves with their repulsive behavior. And for the final day, I used Private Reserve American Blue, which I think I might have used before. I'm not quite sure which blue exactly from Private Reserve, if it was just American Blue or Blue Suede or like both of them. I could obviously look back on prior videos to do that. And this is like a more like brighter, obvious blue than those like so-called like professional blues that tend more towards like a bluish, like, you know, black color with like a dark undertone, like Prussian gray or Persian gray or whatever, like, you know, warm gray, cool gray, 5 or 4, whatever on the color scale. And this was day 30th, the entry again, talking about the, oh yeah, they dared to deface the statues of President Washington and Ben Franklin on their campuses. Like, what's wrong with these people? And like, yeah, I'm totally up front. I think the way like Americans treat the flag like an object of worship and fetish is freaking creepy. I hate that so many schools like think they have to make students recite a daily loyalty oath to the flag, because like what other country does that? And even I thought it was like over the top and beyond disrespectful. They took down the flag at Harvard and put up the terror flag. Like, what the F is going on in these people's minds? I just, I just don't have any words for this generation. I'm so glad I made it into the tail end of Gen X, and I cannot, like, and I'm not any part of these generations doing all this stuff. I, you know, dodged a bullet when I was born in 1979, and I do feel bad for, like, millennials and Zoomers who are not part of this, like, you know, woke, like, crap, pro-terror supporting nonsense. Thank you very much for listening all the way to the end. Hopefully this video was not too rambling and scatterbrained and all over the place. And I'm so sorry I accidentally shut off the video in the middle and had to start again with the second video to be edited onto that video when I do the editing process in like iMovie. And like hopefully you guys enjoyed the inks and the, you'll only use 2 actual fountain pens plus obviously the dip pen for pretty much everything else. Let me know down in the comment if you have either of these pens or pens from these like companies, or what your own dip pen is like. If you guys have a dip pen, if you would recommend a different dip pen for better results, like guaranteed holding the ink longer, and like what other inks you guys would recommend to me based on, you know, the colors and the companies, which I've said I do like. And I have a couple more Diamine inks coming up in the mail, and maybe like 2 like weeks or so after the thing from Cult Pens comes through. I think all the inks in that shipment are from Diamine. They're Cult Pens exclusive, so obviously I had to, you know, jump on that. Well, no, not all of them are exclusives, but like even the ones that aren't exclusive, they're much cheaper because they're coming from a UK-based website. So thank you guys very much for watching all the way through to the end, and please leave a comment. I love having conversations with these guys, and I will see you very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.